Hey everyone, welcome to my chilly workshop. It's been a cold day here. I know it's kind of cold across the US and there's a lot of people down south that are going to get hit pretty bad with it. But did get down to negative 20 overnight here with the wind chills and like, I don't know, 40 some below. And so they did cancel. Well, we had a virtual day on campus today. So I was able to work from home, but the shop was down to like 30 some degrees today. And so I'm out here trying to warm things up, updating some lasers and letting them warm up. Just it's good to kind of keep things moving and make sure things aren't too frosty out here. And I've been a little absent, with going to CES and then coming back. Inevitably couldn't stay healthy, got sick for a few days, and just still playing catch up. Just feel like I haven't had a whole lot of time to do workshop stuff, so figured go out here, and while it's warming up, I don't know, I'm just on here to chat for a little bit. I can't do much out here. It just popped up to 50 degrees in the shop. It's like I said, it started out about 37, 38 this morning, warmed up to about 40 just kind of naturally. I do have a couple of heaters that I do run, like the oil filled electric heaters, just to kind of keep things at a slightly above freezing temp when it gets this cold. But yeah, I got the gas heater on. I got 2 electric heaters going. We're gonna raise it up here a little bit and hopefully get some stuff done. But yeah, thought I would just come on here and see who is bored in their house with this winter chill. Unless you're in like southern Florida, you're probably feeling it. So yeah, but hey Chuck, Barb, yeah, North Central, you guys got a little chillier than us down here, but it's pretty cold across the state. Negative 20 in Nevada, yeah. So yeah, Mark, yeah, your 41 degrees feels tropical. It would. When we get this cold, and especially when it's windy, you get that above zero sunny day without wind, and it feels really nice. So hopefully it doesn't stick around forever, but hey, I mean, up here we expect to have that a couple times a year. It's not like, our friends down south that I was watching a weather report where they're talking about some areas could get half to an inch full of freezing rain, and that's disastrous. So I'm really sending good thoughts and prayers down to people down there that things go okay. There aren't a lot of major disruptions to utilities and such and whatnot. So, but yeah, I am feeling mostly better. I still have just a little residual congestion. I get these respiratory things and they hang on for a while, but I am starting to feel better. It's also the whole seasonal effectiveness disorder. I hit this January month and I can kind of just get into, I want to hibernate mode. And so it's good to get out here and hang out with people and do some things too. So, Brian, you had eye surgery today. That is one of those things. I can't even stand contacts in my eyes. I tried to get contacts, I think my senior year of high school, and I tried for a long time to put one of those in. Anything in my eye, no thanks. And so having any sort of eye surgery, that is one of the things that I would just gives me the heebie-jeebies. So hope that went well for you. And hopefully you recover quick. So yeah, Barb, I know I remember 2 weeks of sub-zero weather. Yeah, I'm hoping this is a quick blast. I think even by Sunday, we'll be up maybe into the double digits. I do have I got a call from a freight company while I was at work the other day, and I have a new machine from Sainsmart coming, but unfortunately the freight company called me, which means it's coming on a pallet, which isn't fun to deal with here because I can't just have them pallet jacket into my shop. I have to kind of load it onto my trailer, bring it around the block to the alleyway and in. So I asked if we could hold off till next week when at least it's above freezing and hopefully less windy. But that I think is coming Tuesday, and I think the temps are going to be in the teens and hopefully not as windy because, yeah, I'm not looking forward to shuffling a pallet around and getting it in here. I do have part of that package here, though, today. They sent it in this nice conglomeration. And so those will be some parts to it. It should be, actually, I should crack that open, take a look. It should be a dust boot and also the relay for turning on and off like your router and the dust collection if you want. So I asked them to include those with that this time if I was going to take a look at another one of their machines. So they did send it along. So I'll take a look, make sure these are okay. But yeah, otherwise, I'm hoping this weekend, I need to get caught up on some video editing from CES. And I need to finish, I've been testing the Anycubic 3D printer. So I need to kind of get those done and out of the way. And I also have a couple of project videos. There's another one I was trying to work on with the X-Tool P3. Cutting a, it's gonna be like a decorative wall shelf kind of thing, but it's themed to go along with some of the other stuff I've been 3D printing. So I'm hoping to get to that, and I should have some more time later this week to do that if I don't get to it all this weekend. Well, I know I won't get it to it all this weekend, but anyway, yeah, this looks like it's the typical dust boot. So if you are getting into CNC machines and you're getting into one of these like Genmitsu machines or the Fox Alien machines, you know, these benchtop ones, you want some dust collection, and these are not too bad. It depends on the model you're getting, but they're maybe like anywhere from $30 to maybe $50 for their setup. It's a good one to at least get you started. And these actually work pretty well for like their 4040 series machines and such, and the 6050. So it's one of the things I think I mentioned in a lot of my reviews that they should really just include it with the one that works with the spindle that comes with the machine, because if you're trying to run a CNC machine without dust collection, you're going to strongly change your mind quickly. Even if you have like a shop vac that you try to run on the side, it gets dusty. Things get everywhere, and you really want that. It helps keep it'll actually pull some of the dust out of the cut as well. So everything runs better with it. So anyway, it's not Chuck. It's not the same one that David got actually. It's a bigger one. It's like their Prover 2x2 XL, and so it's not as big as the Onefinity, but it is a bigger machine. It's got closed loop steppers, it's got linear rails, and it's just a little over a 2 foot by 2 foot working area, and then it also comes with the 710 watt trim router spindle thing. So it's a bigger machine, a little bit nicer. They asked me if I could do it earlier, and I was just like, I can't, over the holidays and whatnot, I didn't have space for it at the time. It's really going to take up a lot of space on the assembly table, or I might even have to set it up on the Onefinity to get that running. So it's it's going to be one of those things that I'm like, okay, this is great, but now where do I put it long term? If it works out to be a decent machine. But yeah, it's bigger than the one David got that he's been working with right now. So, not bored woodworking. Greetings from not so cold Alabama. Yeah, watching those weather reports, it looks like, and you guys are going to get a little cold, but it looks like at least for the most part of Alabama, unless you're up in the northern parts, it sounds like it's at least not going to be a whole lot of freezing rain. Maybe just more thunderstorms and such, at least from, maybe Birmingham or maybe Clanton area down and such. It looked like there was a little bit of a heat bubble that was going to come up from the Gulf for you guys. So hopefully that works out. Hey, Sean Klondike. I was up north in Glenwood, and the drive home yesterday was yeah. Well, glad you're back home. Although head too far south, you're going to get more into that storm that's passing through. But Brian, do I even remember from January 5th to 16th having a high temp above freezing every day? It was 50 here in January. I forgot how great that was. Yeah. There have been, I don't know. You know, it's funny. The Minnesota winters. You know, my dad moved down to Arizona late 90s. And a lot of it was because he was just really tired of Minnesota winters. And it was funny. After he moved down there, we had a streak of real mild winters. And there have been some where it almost didn't snow before Christmas. And then by February, we were back up in the 40s. And even the past couple of years, we've gotten by with minimal snow. But we sometimes get those late cold snaps. So I never count on spring until it's really firmly planted. But yeah, it seems like this year we're paying for it a little bit more in snow and definitely getting this cold dip. So, but yeah, so this is the other part that came in that package. It's the smart relay. So you've got the 2 ports that you can plug in. Like I say, you can add the trim router to it and like the dust collection if you've got that separate. So I had not gotten a chance to work with Genmitsu's one, and it does make things just a little bit nicer on these machines. So I asked them to include that. So we'll be looking at this. I know David's played around with this one, I think on like the 3020 and maybe some others. But this will be nice on this one to play around with. It would work on should work on even if I wanted to hook it up to the 4040 Pro Max or that 3020. But yeah, we'll be looking at let me see if I can bring that up on the website and get the exact specs on it. But like I say, that should arrive Tuesday. So I'm hopefully going to get some of these other things out of the way this weekend and into next week so I can work on that, because I'm trying to I try not to clump too many like machine things together in one, but sometimes just things get backed up and overlap a little bit. So let's see here. Let's find this on their webpage. CNC routers. It is the let me see if I can share the screen and the tab. So this should be the one that they're sending me. So it's the Prover XL 2x2. Like I say, it's the 679 by 679. Oh, these pop-ups. Love that. Comes with the 710 spindle. It's a lot like an upgraded version of the 6050, but also, you know, it's supposed to have closed loop steppers. They have a newer control box with it. So yeah, their working area is about 2.25 feet squared. So it'll be interesting to see. But yeah, deer hunting and t-shirts. So most of the deer hunting I've done here in Minnesota is actually black powder season, and that's always at the end. It's always like around, I think it's after Thanksgiving. And so it was always pretty rare I always felt that we got the worst of both worlds. Is we got the most difficult firearm to hunt with, because it was, you know, you can't, it's all just iron sights, you know. You couldn't even use a breech loading. It was a barrel loaded, muzzle loading rig. So, you know, you had definitely, you know, one shot. And then it was always in the cold after the deer are fully spooked, and, you know, it's just cold. So I don't know why I was so masochistic on myself to only hunt in that season, but yeah, this will be arriving Tuesday. I'm gonna have to make sure I have room to set it up It's going to have some assembly to it, and then we'll start playing around with it, and we'll see how that goes. So I'm kind of excited to play around with that here coming up soon. And I need to get my microphone keeps sliding down. I need to get a wrench to tighten this up. So I hope everybody is surviving 2026 so far. Maybe doing a little better than me with my cold earlier this month. Yeah, I get all the cool toys. Well, everything up here is more almost frozen, David. So I'll definitely say they're cool up here. There we go. Now that won't keep sliding down on me and bug me. Yeah, Brian, black powder and arrow. So like bow hunting does go earlier here for us. As a matter of fact, I live really close to, they call it Rasmussen Woods. It's a large trail system kind of park, but it's right in a ravine in the area, and they have a sponsored bow hunt in the park just to help manage the deer population. So but yeah, I've never been much of a not that great with a bow. So that's not my gig. But yeah, rifle season, it's definitely a nice mix. I love fall season, so I love getting out in the fall, love hiking around in the fall. And hunting and fishing for me is more of a social aspect thing. I don't like to hunt for sport. I mean, if I hunt, I want to hunt for, animals I'm actually going to use, but also, it's more for me to maybe get out with some friends and enjoy the time than actually go after the game and whatnot. So, that drives my hunting more than anything else. I would, I haven't done pheasant hunting in a long time. That would be one thing. I need to find a few people too, but I don't have a good dog for it. So, and there's a lot of extra walking if you don't have that. Ice fishing in the winter. Yeah, there's a lot of that. I guess, it's one of those things that if it's with a good group and maybe in an ice house, I'm not the type to go sit on a bucket and freeze my butt off to catch some fish on the ice. And I'm definitely not going to do it in a vehicle. Sorry. I've seen too many vehicles go through. Get me on a four-wheeler or a snowmobile or something that I can jump off of. I don't want to be in a vehicle and have it go through the ice. But it is fun to get on get out there and learn how to drive in the winter on a frozen lake, I guess, in someone else's vehicle. Hi, Tony. Glad to see you here. So yeah, I'm just kind of out here. The shop's at 50 degrees. I'm trying to warm it up. I fired up the P3 and it needed some updates, which it's completed, but it's also giving me this nice warning. I'll see if I can show it to you here. It's complaining about the water temperature. So here it's saying, yeah, water temperature is slightly below normal. And so using it in that colder temperature, it can damage it. And you can also, if you warm it up too quickly, you can get condensation in these things. So I do turn it on to get the water circulating. The pump shuts off while the machine's off. So even just circulating the water, getting that equipment going, getting some air moving through there can help out. And then hopefully if it warms up enough, I can just run a couple of smaller jobs. I don't want to do too much because then I got to vent air outside and it's slowly warming up in here. So I don't want to be dumping all this hot air out, but we'll see. We'll see how it goes. Barb, you were raised on a farm and lived in the country. Yeah, I haven't ever lived on a farm, but I've always been in semi-rural Minnesota. I mean, Mankato's a bigger area, in and of itself, but I'm 5 minutes away from farmland. So I've always had friends who have had farms of various kinds. And so I've often helped out with them. And it's a great experience. I think everybody should experience, farming in various forms, from, typical crops like soybeans and corn to, livestock and such. I've helped out with friends who have sheep farms, pig farms, dairy farms, horse stables, all that stuff. And, you're in a good respect for what it takes for our food industry here in the US and around the world when you get to work on a farm for a day. And I've done, the hay baling, I've done manure spreading. I've done a lot of that. And I don't know. I mean, part of it is I'm always curious. I like to kind of experience how certain things go and such. That doesn't mean I'd want to do it always. Even just having like a hobby farm is almost even worse because, lower output of, whatever it is, but just as much work. You still got to get up and, make sure the water's flowing, the feed's going, the animals are safe, moving in and out of areas due to weather and such. So, but yeah, I'm not, I kind of like that where we're at. It's not a metropolitan area, but it's a bigger city that has enough that it's kind of self-sufficient, but I don't feel, trapped in suburbia with too many people. So, the only way ice and fishing go together is if the ice is in the cooler, keeping the drinks cold. You get the lakes cold enough where you can get these ice castles out there. I mean, there's some people who they buy these ice houses that in the summer they're their camper. I mean, they are full on. They've got the bunks, they've got the kitchen, they've got, heaters, they've got TVs, they got everything. It's very luxury fishing. Down all the way to the guy sitting on the 5-gallon pail with a hole in the ice. But yeah, I don't need to be shivering, but I can enjoy it even if they have like a modest ice tent with at least a heater in there. So, yeah, Tony, don't think a printer farm qualifies. It's a little bit different kind of farming. Yep. So, let's see what else is going on. Yeah, Barb. The fishes are decked out. The fish houses. There's some people that have had nicer fish houses than I've had. Apartments. Yeah, Brian. The first big snow in Fargo, you go to the local mall and learn how to handle snow. That's very true. Yeah. It's funny. When you talk about weather. So Thursday, of course, at the college, we're keeping an eye on the weather, and there's conversations across the system of like, okay, who's looking at the weather, who's closing or not. And up north, they just plan for this, and we do down here as well. But back when I was in high school, I actually went up to University of North Dakota to tour as when I was thinking about going into commercial aviation for a degree, and they have tunnels everywhere from their dorms to all the different, academic buildings and such. And a lot of that is just because they don't want to shut down during winter, just because it's cold or snowy. And so you can still get from your dorms to all the various academic buildings and such on campus. And that was kind of the theme, is the ones up north are like, yeah, no, we're not shutting down. And then you got into the cities and down here in southern Minnesota where we're like, well, we're more commuter based. Where a lot of our students, we have 0 student housing on our campus. And so all of our students are commuting to campus. And yes, a lot of them are here in town, but we have some from multiple counties away. We serve about a 9-county area. And so they could have a 45-minute to an hour drive just to come to campus and back. And so in those cases, you kind of weigh, what's the wind chill. And if you've had snow recently, southern Minnesota is very flat, kind of plains, farmland. There's not a lot stopping the snow if you get a little bit of wind. And so a couple inches of snow and 30 miles an hour wind can cause whiteout conditions. And if the temperatures are cold, you don't necessarily want people traveling in that. And so that's kind of how some of the conversations went with looking at do we close or not. And luckily, one of the things that has come out of the pandemic is people really figured out and put the tools in place to shift to virtual. And so that's kind of what we did, is just, hey, we're going to have a virtual day. That means, you know, there are some people that obviously can't work or they didn't plan for it, and so they kind of just have the day off or they don't have classes. But, you know, my day was scheduled with about 6 hours of Zoom meetings anyway, and then a couple hours of paperwork and signing contracts and other things like that. So just a same day, different desk for me. But hey, JR, yeah, hope all are well. I'm feeling about, you know, 99% better from my cold from the last week, and getting over kind of some of the January blah, and but needing to warm things up out here in the shop. We're up to 52 degrees. So not quite good enough for wood glue to set, but let's see if I can have the P3. I wonder if it can tell me its temperature, and see if it's safe to even run a quick job on it. So that's one thing, you know, you get a lot of these devices that everything's integrated on it, but if they don't give you, you know, information like, I like still being able to see the milliamps that the tube's running at, or maybe the temperature that the water is running at. You know, when you have an external chiller, it's right on the display of that chiller. A lot of the other lasers, like the OhmTech Polar Light, that it displays the temperature on the screen as well, which is really nice. But sometimes when they make it too user friendly and easy to operate, they kind of take away some of that information that you like to have as maybe a little more of a power user. It can be a little frustrating. But let me go just refresh this P3. So there, it's going to do its autofocus bit, and as long as it doesn't throw me an error, maybe I'll throw something on there and engrave it and try to see if it's warmed up. All right. Seemed to do its thing. Hasn't thrown an error on me yet, other than the initial one. And there we have our little preview of the wood that's in there. Oh, it's been a few weeks. I got to remember what I'm doing in here. Let's import something. Let's import a clack head, because why not? I'll drag that over here. Yeah, Brian. Issue with an all-in-one. If the chiller stops, you got to fix it. You know, that's true of any part on there. You know, the air pump, the chiller, whatnot. It's if it's if it's broken and there's no bypass, or you know, or no port to plug something else in, you're kind of stuck without it. So Brian, yeah, this is, so the way this one works is you open up the lid, and the camera is actually in the lip of the lid, and so you need to hold it open, put your material in there, and there's a little LED, and it'll go from red to green, and it'll say, okay, close the lid, and then that's the preview we're getting here. But we can also come in and you can still do the close shot. So I can come in over here, and this is where it actually moves the head over and takes another picture of that and gives you the real close-up shot. So you kind of see there's just a little bit of variation here between the kind of the wide angle shot and the close-up shot, but this is the one where it moves the head over and takes it straight down. So but yeah, it for doing one-off things like this kind of automatic creation system works pretty well. What I need to do is I need to set up kind of like a a batch job of some things where I need to repeat it and kind of get a flow for that to feel, is it hindering in that way from doing repetitive tasks, repeating the same task over and over again. So all right, we'll just use some of their settings here, maybe. It is nice there, they allow you to adjust the like your airflow. You can adjust the percentage here on an engrave. That's, I think, something that was definitely not on the P2, and on a lot of my other lasers, it's either manual or, it's on or off kind of thing. So there is some nice things about these, newer generation lasers that make things a little bit easier. But all right, this doesn't need to be too crazy. So yeah, I'm going to remove that nozzle. So that's one thing on this. Of course, that might reset everything. Let me see if it does or not. You can take the nozzle off the head of the laser. So we just take this off. And now I'm probably going to back out of this. Just to be sure. And now it says 8 minutes. Gotta go hit the button. Now the cool thing is this preview lets you monitor the job from within the laser, and it actually looks pretty good. They do have you can switch from the front view to the side view if you want. If you have like a larger item, it's not as good, but it gives you a better view of everything else that's in there. But yeah, we'll let that run for a little bit. Make sure the laser's working without freezing up in this wonderful cold weather. So, oh, hey Brad's custom boards. Yeah, hope everyone's staying warm. That's kind of the whole thing I'm doing out here. Is just the shop got down to about 37 degrees. And so I was like, okay, I got to warm it up. I warmed it up yesterday to kind of bring it up in here before it got really cold overnight. And then I didn't want to run all the heaters overnight while I'm not out here to monitor it. So I leave a couple of just these radiant, the oil-filled electric radiator heaters on when it gets really cold. And that kind of keeps everything from freezing. And then I fired up the gas heater and a couple electric heaters here this afternoon to be able to run things again. Let me go grab this real quick. So if you have an external shop like I do, I have this little Govee thermometer, and this is just a little, it's an IoT, so it goes on Wi-Fi. It just takes like 3 AAA batteries, and then I can have it monitor the temperature and the humidity out here, and then you can also set alerts on it to tell, send you an alert like, hey, if it drops below a certain temperature, send me an alert. And so a little bit of an early warning if things are getting too cold or whatever, or maybe too hot. So I have that out here so I can kind of monitor the temperatures, whether I'm just inside or away from home. And they're super cheap. Grabbed it on Amazon for like $20 or something like that. So not a bad thing to have in your shop. Anyway, see what else is going on. Just curious what Tony is asking, what plans do I have for the gorgeous slab behind you? So let's see here. The walnut ones there, those were actually supposed to be a dining room table. And I actually have a set of chairs. Here, let me go grab some. So those are the backs for some walnut chairs. Now I can't take full credit for these. A friend of mine up here in Minnesota, some of you might know him if you follow woodworking circles, Matt Cremona. He came out with these chair kits a few years ago, and makes it a lot easier to make a dining room table and a set of chairs. Well, kids can be rough on things, and we kept kind of changing plans and layout of dining room and such, and so that kind of hasn't come to fruition, and I don't know if it will. So that might change. There's also somewhere in there's a nice hard maple slab. I had planned to kind of be a bit of like a desktop and such, but I have a couple friends, Matt, well, actually I know a couple of Matts that have sawmills. One of them, he's out of Northfield, Minnesota, Matt Collins. He actually does a lot of infrastructure clearing projects. So his family runs a kind of a logging service where they go in and they'll clear out for like highway expansions and subdivisions, things like this. And so they've got some really heavy equipment, and they cut down larger trees with some pretty heavy equipment. And then he takes some of the nicer ones and cuts them down on his sawmill, kiln dries them, flattens them two sides. And every so often when he has high inventory, he kind of runs basically a clearance sale. So a lot of that stuff I've gotten for like $5 a board foot, which is pretty cheap for flattened, 2-inch thick slabs. So some of it, yeah, I picked up just because it was an inexpensive way to have material on hand. I've had people want, like bigger wall mounted signs, if you want to do bigger 3D carvings, things like that, it's nice to have that on hand. So not all of it has a plan. It's just right price, right time. Wanted to have it on hand for when inspiration hit. Some of the others are just extra wood. There's some cedar that was from a furniture project. I bought a bunch of it, and I didn't need all of it, but now I have it for other projects as well. So yeah, it's some of it had plans, some of it has plans, some of it's just there for when inspiration or need strikes. But yeah, the old light bulbs that would help heat up. The other thing is when I'm running the CNC and the shop vac, those motors will create heat, and then the vacuum creates kind of air circulation to help move things around as well too. So get a little side benefit of running equipment while it's cold out here. Our engraving's going pretty well. It's almost finished. We got another minute and a half, but machine seems to be working, seems to have survived the chill so far. Mark Baird says, I 3D printed a jig for squaring material. It slides into several of the slots for the blades on the P3. Seems like it could be adapted for most jigs. Yeah. Yeah. And the slats on here are fairly common. They're similar to like the P2 and others. So I'm sure that, you can use that for multiple things. And that's where, that repeat job kind of feature, definitely having a spot not only to square it up, but to kind of have a repeatable start point can help you out as well. So that's something I haven't done a whole lot with the P3, and I want to play around with to see how it does on batch operations to see. I think it's a great kind of one-off or, you know, unique item laser so far. And it definitely has a nice large working area. One thing I used to do with my 60 watt generic eBay laser was I would run repeated jobs. So I'd want to create X number of kits of these glue caddies or whatnot. And then there it's finishing off and dropping out of the way, and the laser head moves back up. It says it's done after 8 minutes, 15 seconds. But with that laser, I would just basically in the honeycomb, I would put some magnets, or I would put a couple of clamps that were kind of my corner pieces, and that was kind of my 0, 0 area, and I would index off of that. And I could literally just go to the laser and just hit start again, and it would repeat the job. And so that's with all this kind of automation system on the P3. And you can turn some of that off. And so I'm kind of wanting to play around with a batch job like that to get that feel of if it's as simple, or if that creation system gets in the way of stuff. I'm gonna go pull that engraving off, see how it looks. Okay, static electricity is rebooting my devices. So it could use a little more contrast, but for just using their stock birch settings on it, it's not terrible. I mean, it looks like David. So the laser is working. I'm not going to run it too much right now until it warms up a little bit more, but wanted to make sure that it was okay. Like I say, on my other lasers that have an external chiller, sometimes I'll even leave that running when it's colder. Just the moving water is less likely to freeze, and it also allows the water to kind of keep more things at a consistent temperature. Tony's asking, what do I teach? I actually don't teach at the college directly anyway. We all kind of indirectly teach, but I started at the college as kind of like a computer lab assistant in the IT section, supporting students in the lab, and I've worked up through workstation support, systems administrator, server, network administrator, and now I'm the chief information officer and director of IT services. So I manage the staff and all the technology and the budgets of keeping all the technology running at the school, at the college. Been there for a little over 25 years now doing that, and enjoy it. So, but we do still indirectly teach the students. There's a lot of times that we're helping out with the programs, or we have our own student work studies and such. And I get to teach a lot on here as well. So, Brad's been playing around with the Bamboo P2S, really enjoying it. Been playing with Tinkercad also. Great. Yeah. I need to, like I say, I need to finish up my review with the Anycubic S1 and get back into doing some 3D design stuff with some fun. And that's the other nice thing about 3D printers. I can run them inside, and I can, when it's this cold out here, I can kind of scratch that creative maker itch with, some 3D printing and some smaller stuff inside. So definitely enjoy having those tools as well. I'm glad you're playing around with it, and hopefully I'll come up with another project here and soon and get another Tinkercad video out there. It's been a little while. Gerald Grady, negative 29 tonight with wind chill. Yeah, that's, I feel you. We got down to our core temp, they said here in town, was negative 20 with a wind chill of negative 45. I did see something that some temperatures up in North Dakota and northern Minnesota, they were closer to negative 27 or 29, and their wind chills got into like the negative 50s to 60s. So feel sorry for those people too. But yeah, you get below zero and you get any wind, and it's a whole nother thing. So Santa is laser engraving. You've been enjoying that 85X. Yeah, I'm glad that's working out for you. Glad that's it. Like I said, I do have that printer. It's still on my bench. I just need to get kind of through this latest review and play around with that a little bit more. But yeah, there's been a lot of advances in 3D printing over the past few years. I'm curious to see, there's physics involved. So you can only do so much with any of these kind of tools where physics start preventing you from, you can only move so fast. You can only accelerate so fast. You can only heat up and cool down things so fast. Same thing with lasers and such. That, it'll be interesting to see where the innovation goes from there. It's been great to see kind of the quality and the speed of 3D printing go faster. But like I say, I wonder at what point we won't be able to push at least this kind of additive FDM style, or even like the UV resin printing. You can only make that so fast. So it'll be interesting to see where it goes. Mike's asking, did you see FlashForge is coming out with a new Creator 5 and 5 Pro with the 4-head system? I haven't seen that one specifically, but yeah, that definitely seems to be the trend. The Ultimaker came out. Prusa's got their multi-head one. Bamboo's got their multi-head one out. Or on its way out. So yeah, I think that's kind of one of the next evolutions that helps speed that up, because now you can have at least a few, 2 or 4 colors kind of preheated, ready to go, just swap the head kind of thing. And you save a lot of time and a lot of material, not having to do the purging of the filament into the same head. So great to see those continue to be developed and coming out. And hopefully that makes, multicolor, multi-filament 3D printing a little more efficient. I think that's the thing with the multicolor systems that, they use, like the AMS or the CMS or whatever, the IFS that they all like to call them, systems, is that they take that time to make that swap, and they waste so much material, and you have to do it layer by layer to get it done right, that it really slows down the process and it adds a lot of waste. And so it's kind of like, yeah, that's cool, but it's really frustrating to see the time and the waste. That's one of the things, like if you're doing just some of the decorative stuff, the guy who makes those chunkables over on Thangs, he does it to where you run the parts individually, and then they all kind of lock in together, so you're not wasting the filament. You don't have to have a specialty printer for it, but you get some really cool looking characters and such. But yeah, I think the multi-head units are definitely going to be a thing that kind of makes that next jump in speed and quality. But yeah, Sharon, I'm glad the 2 or 3 that I've put out so far are helpful. Hopefully like I say, I just need to kind of find the project that makes sense and that we can design it there to help kind of inspire and keep people being creative and kind of dipping toe into new technologies and new tools. And that's one of the things that, I love playing with the new technology. It's fun getting new equipment in, but there's also the pressure from these companies. They're viewing people like David and I as part of their marketing wing. And I get it. That's the only reason they're sending the machines out to us, is they want to get the exposure and they want to sell machines. That's not my goal, though. I mean, it's a great side benefit that if I give you enough information to where you feel like that's a machine for you, that you use my link and I get a little bit of kickback for it. But my goal is really to be a teacher and make sure you know really honestly what to expect out of a machine. And so I always feel a little bit in conflict with what I'm trying to do with these machine reviews versus what the companies want to do, and keeping that kind of editorial bit to myself while not being overwhelmed with requests from places, but also not being like beholden to them and such. And I don't know, it's sometimes frustrating. You start working with some of these companies and they start getting a little more pushy, and you're like, I'm not your marketing channel. I want to work with you, but stop being so pushy. So, yeah. So I just saw your comment, Santa, on that. And that's the thing is I see a lot of their advertising where, they make it look like you can set this device up on your coffee table and let it run while you're watching TV and your dog's sitting there wagging its tail. And I don't want to call anyone out or disparage other creators, but I feel I see that in some other creators too, where they're like, make $5,000 in 1 week with this machine. And I'm like, a person's not going to go out and buy a laser, put it on their coffee table, crank out some things from a design they bought from someone on Etsy and make $5,000. It's just not realistic. There's a lot more to it than that. And I know a lot of you found that out or are living that. And, especially when you don't have necessarily your niche yet or your audience. I mean, content creators like myself, David, and others, we have a built-in audience that, are going to get exposed to our ideas and our files and such. So, if I create a coaster caddy like I have, naturally more people are going to see it than the average person who doesn't have an audience on YouTube. And so for them to be able to say, hey, yeah, grab this material, grab this machine and make these things, and you're going to sell, you're going to make $5,000 within a week. I think that's, it's a little dishonest. It's not impossible, but it's improbable. So, yeah, I try to, in my reviews of equipment and in sharing ideas and projects and such, I try to, make it as realistic as possible. Like this is what they say it'll do, but in reality, this is what I'm finding with my material and my workshop and my stuff, to hopefully give a little more of a realistic idea of what the equipment can do. I don't go into it as much in the business end as others. I've gotten a little bit of away from doing the shows as much just because of it. It doesn't fit into my family's and my personal time frame right now to do a lot of just one-off like craft shows and such. And so I don't feel like I want to try to pretend I can speak with authority on that. Other than from my past experience on it, my focus recently has been more of, word of mouth kind of customization things and then business to business kind of things. And so I can speak to the business side of it, but I try not to like come off as like, hey, I have all the answers for you and here's how you go out and make a bunch of money. So, but yeah, it's, I think that I try to present at least a little bit more of like in the workshop, what you can expect from the machine and, maybe some good tips for when you're going out and try to sell some things. But yeah, Mark, you're enjoying your Snapmaker U1. I'm glad. I hope that at some point this year, whether I buy one myself or maybe some company will step up and offer one to me, is to play with a multi-head 3D printer to kind of see what I think about it. Maybe I'll want to do some more multicolor stuff then, and plus maybe the speed improvements and such. But I looked at that one. I was like, it's intriguing, but I was also kind of like a little skeptical. But I'm glad it's kind of come out and it's really kind of lived up so far to what they said it was. You never know with some of those Kickstarter things and early adopter kind of things. Is the end product going to live up to everything they said it was going to be? So, Brad, you need to get a CO2. Well, yeah, I mean, maybe. Like I say, a lot of people will tell you got to buy the biggest, greatest, most powerful machine. It's not always the case. If you're doing a lot of customized one-off items and you're doing more engravings than cutting, multiple diodes might be the thing for you. A CO2 is great at production. It's better at cutting. It can engrave. I mean, they've been around longer than diode lasers. Yes, you can engrave with them, but the diodes give you the advantage of giving just a little more of a contrast, a little more of a sintering, a little more scorching of a burn. They're less efficient at cutting. They're better at burning. Whereas the CO2 just has a more efficient style of cutting and burning. So you have to play a little bit more with some CO2s to get the darker, nice contrast burn. Plus, they do by their nature have a slightly larger beam. That being said, I mean, I just engraved this goofy guy's face on a board with an 80-watt CO2, and the detail's pretty good. So, it's kind of the same thing when people are saying, oh, and you go from a 10 watt to a 20 watt to a 40 watt diode, that the detail is so much less. I'm like, technically, you know, based on the beam size, yes, it is less, but it's also how fine of a perception is your eye able to tell that, and how consistently in your material is that spot size burning those pixels that you can discern the difference. So it's, you know, you got to pick the machine for the work you're doing, and never feel like you got to keep up with the Joneses. But there's definitely some reasons to have multiple style of machines for different types of work. If you've got the, you know, the space for it, the budget for it, you know, and whatnot. I had five to 7 year olds asking for 3D printers. Then you see all these parents going, this messed up and I don't know. Yeah. I think that's one thing that's changed over the past year or so. You know, Bamboo and Prusa really pushed it to make it more of an appliance, and more reliable, more automated. But now you're seeing a lot of the other companies kind of catching up to that, to where it's a lot easier to be successful with it. But there are still maintenance issues. There are still things that can cause it to very quickly go from, hey, look at all the cool things it's making, to I'm getting spaghetti mess. You know, it's not adhering. It's, you know, the nozzle's slightly clogged up, and you start fighting and chasing it. So it's not to the, you know, the Polaroid camera, take a picture, it spits out a photo and it develops in 2 seconds kind of thing. Yet, but it's getting closer, and that's part of it. That, like I said earlier, I want to try to give people a realistic expectation of, like, hey, yes, you can do these things. Might not be quite as easy as it looks on in the ads. David, I'm sure you can make 5K in a week with a F1, but not necessarily everybody, and not necessarily just buy it and do it. So. But yeah, see, like Connie says, David could sell a $5 item, all of us, to meet his goal. Yep, he's got that built-in audience that makes it a little bit easier. But again, I mean, he's also worked hard for that. You know, I've had some friends, like in my RC model aviation hobby. I used to do reviews and write for a national magazine and do videos, and you know, they'd say, oh, it must be nice to get all this free stuff. And I'm like, well, while I didn't pay cash for this, I invested a lot of time in building myself up to the position where people respected me and trusted me, and the magazine wanted to hire me to do this work. And then, you know, I've spent a lot of time, you know, you don't get to just open up the box, take everything out, put it together and go fly it. Or in this case, you know, put the machine together and start using it. You got to kind of document all the steps. You got to take the photos, you got to take the videos. It takes time. You know, very privileged to be where I've gotten to with this, and the fact that, you know, I do have companies saying, hey, we'd like to send you a machine, but you know, there's the buildup and the work to get there. And that's not free. So, prints TPU 95 perfectly. You don't have to feed it directly in the print head like Bamboo printers. Yeah, that's one thing on the FlashForge 85X. I was able to run that through their IFS system. I did dry it and put it in a kind of a climate controlled container that would feed it out, so it wouldn't, you know, absorb moisture real fast. But it went through their system. I didn't have to swap out the multi-head and feed it directly too. So. Oh, Brad, you do have 4. Okay, you might be due for a CO2 now if you've got space for it. You got a good collection or a good farm going already. So, yeah, I said it and I stand by it. Mark says, I wish U.S. 3D printer makers would start innovating like Bamboo and Prusa have done. I think the problem there is a lot of the U.S. you know, you can take this to any industry really that has maybe a commercial and a consumer grade to it. The cost to develop and market things in the U.S. and manufacture them in the U.S., it's tough for them to see the price point of the consumer grade items and say, yeah, we want to invest in that, you know, and so they focus more on the higher end engineering and commercial quality things and such. So, you know, I think that's a difficult thing. I don't know how we change here. You know, there's definitely a lot of companies that utilize, you know, US based individuals, or they might have like a design component of their company, but they're definitely still, you know, doing their manufacturing elsewhere and such, just due to the cost still. So, but yeah, it would be nice to see, you know, have more options out there, and have companies definitely taking more of that mindset of let's find that middle ground. You know, it doesn't need to be the low end, super cheap, but super finicky throwaway item, and or the real high end engineering. I mean, we want the kind of middle ground where, you know, it's affordable and approachable for the hobbyist or the consumer, but it's quality enough that, you know, you're not going to use it 5 times and then it stops working, you throw it away, and you try to buy another one. So yeah, Clack's got a long job going there. Double-sided whiskey glasses. Advertise my donations. Well, yeah, it's part of the business, you know, making those connections, doing those kind of those charitable donation type things for exposure in your community. So I know I've done some of that too. I try to find some organizations I can partner with to help them out, but also then get my you know, my work, my skills in front of, you know, preferably other businesses that might want, you know, larger quantities of items. So definitely a good route to go with that. So, we're up to 54 degrees in the shop here, at least by one thermometer, and these are only a couple feet apart. This one says 51.9. You can get off that glare, but this one says 54. So we're in the low 50s. I'm at least not shivering, and I'm out of my stocking cap. But yeah, it's nice to be out here. This is probably about the longest I've spent out here all month, because I haven't been out here for the live streams because it's been too cold, or I've been too sick, and it's been chilly out here to be working otherwise. So hopefully this weekend and next I get some more time out here to do some things and work on some stuff. But we will see. Anyway, so what else has people got going on? You got questions for me, or ideas, questions that can turn into a video? You want to tell Clack he needs to come visit so we can do a meet and greet and I can clean out the shop some? Oh, let's see here. There we go. Yeah, like I said, I've got that. I got that new CNC machine coming. I've got a couple projects with the P3. Got a 3D printer review to finish and some CES content to get through. So I'll hopefully get caught up on some of that, get some content coming back out on the channel that isn't just live streams and random clips from shows. Tony the Floor is asking, if you do a 3D deep engrave on a CO2, can it be run in line to get deep? So you can, yeah, you can do multiple passes with any kind of laser, and you can vary kind of the power on it to sometimes do similar to what you do with a coin. You might do a burning pass, and then you might do a lighter one to do a kind of a bit of a cleaning pass, depending on the laser. And you can, you could have it change directions, but you have to set that up in the layers and such to maybe repeat it. It also can help in some cases to maybe have it drop down. One of the ones that surprisingly does it pretty well is Atom Stack Studio has a mode in their images where you can tell it to do just a regular engrave or try to do more of a a 3D engraved, and it sometimes helps to have, you know, that grayscale depth map kind of thing, but it's doable with any laser, and some materials. It's just how effective it's going to be and how long it's going to take. But yeah, with the CO2, it's definitely going to be more likely to, you know, ablate the material rather than just sinter it. So, you know, like if you have a thicker piece of maple or poplar or such that's not as hard as other materials, it's easier to get a little bit more depth to it. It's just, it takes time, and it takes passes to get it done. So Sharon saying, would like to learn how to add pegs, etc., in order to create a 3D design that has multiple colors without the AMS. And can you show how to do a lithograph type 3D print? Yeah, that might be the yeah, I both of those. So you can do the pegs to join stuff. You know, that takes a little bit of extra work in this. You know, you got to be able to create multiple objects in the slicer, and then you kind of, you'll add like a peg or a tube to put a join mark on it. I've seen a lot of people where they'll do it to, they'll add just like a hole the size of the filament, and then they'll use just, you cut off a piece of filament as kind of your spacer, and that's like your alignment peg, and then you use your choice of glue to put them together. So that's something, you know, maybe I can find the right project to do a little bit of that with. And with like Orca Slicer or a lot of their branches, you can kind of do that just within there. You wouldn't necessarily have to design that in with, say, Tinkercad and bring it in. Lithograph or lithiopane, that would be a fun one to play with. I haven't done a whole lot of that in a while, so I'd probably need to kind of refresh myself on it. But yeah, it might be kind of fun to play around with that style. And that's something that I've thought about doing, you know, not necessarily even just creating 3D files, but, you know, just showing some projects, maybe taking other people's projects and how to kind of be successful with them on a printer, or incorporating them or modifying them into another project, just to kind of add some extra 3D printing content and inspire some ideas of, you know, use what's out there and modify it a little bit. So, but yeah, the lithiopane kind of stuff would be fun to play with and maybe highlight some as well. So I'll add that to kind of the list of things to hopefully do a little bit with. JP Palm, 7 degrees in North Jersey. I was watching one of the forecasts is saying that, you know, the snow coming up that way through, you know, Philadelphia, New York, Boston, depending on where the track hits, you guys could get quite a walloping of snow there. So I hope that goes well for you guys. I hope it's not too bad. I hope they can deal with the snow, and hopefully that's not too debilitating. If, you know, if you get too much ice or too much snow in some of these metro areas, it can really shut things down to get cleared out. But that is definitely winter for people in the more northern states. You gotta be ready for it. So yeah, Sharon, I always appreciate the ideas of what people are looking for. You know, sometimes, you know, this happened to me when I was writing for the model aviation stuff as well. Our editors would say, hey, we'd like some more how-to content. And I sometimes get stuck in this mindset of, you know, I've been doing things for so long that sometimes the day-to-day operations that I take for granted, that are just kind of second nature to me, are things that people want to learn, those tricks and those tips and the, you know, maybe the stuff that seems just typical to me. And so it's great to hear from people like saying, hey, can you expand a little bit more on how you did this? Or I've heard this is possible. Can you show that? So I always appreciate people sharing that and give me those ideas. So David needs to quit making comments from the shadows and join in with you. Well, I mean, if he wants to, he can, but he probably has his goggles on and he's probably got the fans going with the UV laser as well. Who knows? So sometimes that's a little distracting when you're trying to get through a bulk job like that and such. But, and, you know, sometimes we try not to step too much on each other when we're doing our own thing. But yeah, we enjoy we enjoy the support of each other as well as support of everybody here too. So, I did also get in. True Flat came out with a cherry laminate of their manufactured plywood stuff. So they're laser safe plywood. So, well, it's really more MDF with that UV veneer on it. But I was excited to get that. Cherry wood is actually like next to walnut. It's one of my favorite ones to do traditional woodworking with. I just kind of like the color and I like working with it. And so to have that option in True Flat is nice. So I'll have to come up with a cool project to kind of highlight that as well. Do some more playing with that. I was also thinking I need to come up with a good idea for some more laser CNC 3D printing stuff at my work office. I've been trying to kind of mix it up there with some stuff from the workshop. I've had so much like aviation themed stuff in there that, you know, people know that that's one of my hobbies, but I would like to share more of this hobby with people at work as well. So I've actually thought about bringing in the A1 Mini and putting it on my desk, even running it on occasion. Because the 85X and now possibly the Anycubic Cobra S1 is kind of on my 3D printer shelf. It's kind of pushed the A1 Mini off of its place. And so, you know, I could still run that a little bit at work. Yeah. David's got his CNC and 2 lasers going right now. I figured it was probably pretty noisy in his shop. So, D Diggs is asking, is your workshop in your garage? Looks massive. So, we bought this house 24 years ago. And it's the house was built in 1928, so it's almost 100 years old. And I don't know when the garage was built, but it was old. And when they did a street project, they did a complete reconstruction of our street. They tore out like all the sewer and the water lines and everything. They did a full rebuild of it. This was it's going on 17, almost 18 years ago now. And when they did that, we were looking at having our driveway redone. Come to find out, our old driveway was over the property line. And so the city's like, well, you can't build over your property line. And I was like, well, I can't fit a driveway on this narrow strip. And so we kind of were forced to rethink the layout of our lot. There's an alleyway that actually dead ended just before my property. And so I was able to get the city to extend that with the crew that was doing the main road. And so I was kind of forced into rebuilding the garage. Wasn't planning on that expense at the time, but it's kind of what I had to do. So at that time, I was just kind of doing the model aviation stuff. I had a small bandsaw. I think I had like maybe a portable table saw kind of thing. I wasn't doing as much traditional woodworking at the time. So I kind of planned the layout of this to be able to park 2 cars in there, but it's 24 wide by 30 feet deep. And so the thought was the first 2/3 was for car parking and such. And then the last 10 feet or so would be for my model aviation stuff. So I have like 3 electrical circuits up there. I've got top and bottom rows of power. Well, then as I kind of got more into traditional woodworking and such, the garage, we just started parking outside more, and the garage kind of turned into the full space is mostly my shop with, some storage for things like, bikes and other stuff. So yes, I do have a fairly large work area here. But I wish I would have rethought the layout of the electrical, because along the wall that's in front where my computer and some of my lasers here, and then that back wall actually shares a circuit, because my thought was I'm mostly parking cars here. I don't need separate electrical in there. So now my largest walls and wall space share a circuit, and I could go back and fix that, but I insulated and I drywalled and everything's like inside that. So it would be more like surface mount conduit to fix some of that. And but yeah, it's a nice big space. I'm glad I have it. I'm blessed that my wife allows me to kind of take over all this space. You know, I try to make it up to her and make sure that, you know, on days like this, when it's snowy and cold, I clear the snow off. And, you know, she's got the car with the heated seats and the such. So, she kind of is okay with not having the indoor parking space, but it's also been an area that has been a second, you know, side income for me. And so it definitely makes that. So, so it is bigger. Depends on, you know, there's some people who have like you know, they have an 8-foot by 2-foot workbench. That's their shop. But I also have friends who have workshops that are 4 or 5 times this size. So pretty much, you know, you work with what you've got. You're going to fill up that space. You'll always probably wish you had a little more room. But I try to be thankful for what I have and not be too envious of what others have, and just roll with it. So, but yeah, it is a nice space. It's nice that it is insulated and I can heat it in the winter and such to a point, and somewhat keep it cool in the summer. Santa's laser engraving. When I made my dad's urn, working with mahogany was great. Such beautiful wood. Yeah, it's another nice one. I've played around with it a little bit. I got to make the urn for my mother, you know, when she passed away. I had some curly maple, and some cherry, and then some walnut accents, I think. And the cool thing was, when we were going through her stuff, she was a teacher. She did a lot of reading. She made a lot of notes, but she also had a lot of, you know, just little doodles and sketches. And so she really loved pine trees. She really loved northern Minnesota and their pine trees and such. And I came across a page that actually had this on it. And it's just a little pine tree that she had kind of scribbled. And it was actually on lined paper. So I was able to scan that in and take the lines away. And then I was able to use the laser to engrave this on the top of her urn, which was kind of a really cool touch to have, you know, a drawing that she made engraved onto that for people. And so it was, and that was really nice. It was something that it was one of those projects that, you know, it's kind of something special that I could do for my mom one last time and make it very personalized. So it's very cool. Mark Baird, you just ordered a sample pack from True Flat. Took 3 weeks for delivery. Well, I mean, I don't know how I've had things from them. It seems like they've come quickly, but like this last one, yeah, I kind of feel like it took a little bit longer. Of course, a lot of their stuff, if it's coming straight from Canada, that can slow things down as well too. But I don't know about 3 weeks for delivery. I don't know that that's normal. It might just be this time of year and whatnot. But I also feel like maybe they switched from, I think in the past I've had them come FedEx, but this time it came UPS. So I don't know. Mike, you're an aviation technician, and that's all I seem to 3D print to is model planes. Yeah. Yeah, I've seen there's actually a cool it's out on the Bamboo Maker World. It was designed around their whatever their H2X, that the laser version. And so it's like, I don't know if it's the Spruce Goose or something similar, but they have kind of it's a multi-format thing where they have like the 3D printed placard and stand, but then it switches from being like a 3D printed shell to being the laser cut like ribs and stringers and all that stuff. And so it's a kind of a cool mixed format kind of thing. And I've downloaded the files, and I'm trying to modify them for laser cutting, not on the Bamboo laser because I don't have that one, but I want to kind of build that model and have that on display. So, so yeah, but I've done some model plane stuff. I've actually 3D printed. Well, I have some files for 3D printing an actual, radio control model. a friend of mine at the club actually printed up a Spitfire, World War II Spitfire from Britain. And he's like, he brought it out to the field and he's like, I know if I try to fly this thing, I'm going to crash it. Will you give it a shot? Because I think you'll have better luck than me. And so we did put that up in the air, and it was impressed to see that fly as well. So, but yeah, one of the things, and actually the thing that I'm going to be making on the P3 here, hopefully maybe this weekend or next, is a wall shelf for a collection of TIE fighters that I 3D printed and put together. I found the files out there as well for the TIE fighters and was playing around with them. But then, and Carla was asking me, she's like, yeah, these are great. Where are you going to put them? Because right now I have a couple of them sitting on my computer tower in my office downstairs. One of them tends to sit on the A1 when I'm not printing, and then I move it over to the Eufy printer when I am. So I need to get them on the wall in a place where I can decorate them. But I'm going to try to do it in kind of that Star Wars, kind of the Death Star, Star Destroyer wall with the oval, the backlit oval kind of design. So we're gonna have a little fun playing around with some LED lighting, some frosting, and mix that up. But yeah, there's a lot of that. I mean, I make useful things like these little. This is a nice little razor blade knife thing. The 3D printed jigs, a spoil board for the Cubico, all that stuff. But it's also fun. Back as a kid, I always loved playing around with making, putting together plastic models. And so I like doing the decorative tchotchke stuff with them as well. Tony, doing a lit up sign of your school logo in the work office. Yeah, I've been thinking about making one for our help desk as well, just to kind of spice it up a little bit. Jeff's asking, have you used the MillMage software or your thoughts or feelings on it? I've poked around in it. I haven't done a whole lot with it. They're still kind of in beta pre-release. So I'm waiting a bit. I've just been kind of busy with other projects and things. And so it's kind of one of those things where I need to commit the time to a project to work it through 100% and see. My thoughts on it are, if you're wanting to come from the laser world, you've been using Lightburn, and you want to dip your toe into CNC machines, it's going to be a little less foreign. It'll be a little more familiar for you. But they, and the other software started out there too. I mean, when VCarve, Vectric was Cut 2D was first coming out. It was very basic. And I kind of feel that's where MillMage is at, is they're just kind of like, they're getting the basics down. And they'll need to do some catch up to necessarily really compete with the features and availability of tools within, like VCarve and CarveCo and such. But it is, I think, going to be a good bridge from laser users wanting to get into CNCs. And I think that's where it's going to fit, at least in the interim. And then hopefully over time that they definitely get it fleshed out, that it becomes a real competitor, hopefully in features. But Kevin says the buys True Flat from Makerflow and get it about a week. Decent prices too. Yeah, I know there's a few places to pick it up, and so there might be some, depending on where you're at. I mean, I'm closer to Canada than you might be, so when I get my stuff direct from them, it might come faster. But a lot of times, doesn't matter where you're at. With like FedEx, that's going to fly into the Memphis area is I think one of their hubs, and then UPS I think comes in through. International stuff comes in through, it's Ohio. There's a couple areas. They all kind of go to that area first, and then they branch out from there. So geographic location doesn't always, just because I'm closer to Canada doesn't mean it's not going to all of a sudden take a trip to Florida before it comes up my way. Santa says her mother-in-law was an artist, and when she passed, she found some lap dust that she had pencil drawn on and trace. Oh yeah, it's always nice when you can kind of capture and preserve some of that stuff. And it's one thing too, you know, when my mom passed, I mean, she had cancer, and she actually outlived her initial prognosis. And so it wasn't like, and all of a sudden she was here and then gone, even though you know, you kind of hope they're gonna beat it or live for a while. And so you never know when it's going to happen. It's nice when you can kind of preserve some of those things, whether it's their artwork and whatnot. But one thing that I found that was surprising to me was, you know, as we're going through her stuff, you know, there's all sorts of notes, there's all sorts of photos and such. But what we had little, you know, less of was like video and audio. So sometimes just hearing that person's voice is kind of a nice thing. And so that's one thing, you know, with my videos here is, you know, my kids will be able to go back and look at, you know, this is what dad was doing for so long, and here's dad, and you know, they'll kind of have this living record on top of, you know, all the other stuff. So you know, just something to think about if you're dealing with people that are grieving and such, is if you can help them capture some of those moments in whether it is, you know, a sketch that you can preserve into something more than a sheet of paper or whatnot. Those are some ways to kind of help people just kind of have that, you know, that blanket they can wrap around them when times are tough and they just need that comforting thing again. Is just something that's a little more permanent that they can bounce back on. Stephen Main's asking, have I used lightweight ASA for 3D printed model planes? I haven't, because I have the files from them back before, you know, when some of the ASA was just coming out, and now they have got the lightweight stuff. I haven't tried printing one recently. Now with, you know, having like the bamboo printers and some of the others that are a little less finicky, I'd love to try that again. And so I think I have like a Piper Cub model that I probably have the gear for. So I should probably pick up some of that and try to print it out. But it's definitely better than PLA, because like you print it out in PLA, it's going to work once or twice, but once it sits out in that sun for a few hours, it's done for. So, but yeah, and that was the thing. I think it was last Sunday someone asked us, like, can you explain the differences of all the filaments? Like, well, there are so many different filaments out there for specific applications like this, where you might have a lighter weight material that's meant more specifically for some of these applications than others. But Rick, well, I mean, this was kind of just of a quick pop-up thing. I've been trying to warm up my shop. We're up to 55 degrees now here. Just trying to warm up the shop so I can get some stuff done here, maybe tonight, if not, you know, through the weekend. And figured I'd come on here and chat with people that wanted to hang out for a bit. But Led Zepp saying, a little late to the show. Hope everyone's doing good. I'm having a chilled night before working all Saturday to fill an order. Still trying to convince my wife the lasers are just a hobby. Yeah, it's that was kind of the thing here. It was chilly out here and needing to warm things up so I can do some work. But trying to convince yourself the lasers are just a hobby. Is that because you keep taking requests from people or what? Yeah, I even now, you know, having this channel and working with some other businesses, I keep calling it still my kind of side hobby business, because I'm in a position where I do kind of need to continue my main career for a variety of benefits, and you know, my boys are getting tuition discounts because I work there and such. But I'm hoping that in the next 10 to 13 years, I can, you know, make more of that transition that David did, and you know, maybe not retire, but you know, have my retirement counts and pension and such built up to the point where I can say, okay, you know, maybe for another 6 to 8 years, I'll just do this. So maybe then I'll have to not call it my hobby, but my legit job at that point. But oh no, Rick, your furnace is out. Well, I hope you get that repaired quickly, because unless you're in southern Florida, you're probably cold. So heating by stove. Well, take care and stay warm. Hope everybody's staying safe with that. Have I seen any exploding trees? No, I've seen a lot of memes about that. Actually, I joke around. We had the neighbor's maple tree. This is really big maple, and its branches were hanging over the house, and it was getting, one of the branches was getting within, 12 to 16 inches of the house, and it was becoming a danger. And so I also have a couple of big oak trees on the front south side of our house that we're also getting close to the house. So I talked to my neighbors saying, hey, I need to call a tree service to see about getting these trimmed this winter. And they said, well, we actually would like to see about getting this tree removed because it's close to their deck and everything. And it's just a beautiful tree, just in the wrong spot. And then the other neighbors wanted like an aspen tree taken down that was right on our other property line. And so I was coordinating that earlier this week with having them come in and take those down and trim out trees. So I kind of joke with some of my friends up here that I did some preemptive removal, so I didn't have trees exploding next to my house. So Rick, you're in North Indiana. Oof. Well, hope that goes well for you. I hope you get that fixed. I hope you stay warm, because it's definitely cold up here in the northern states. I've got some friends over in central Indiana and central Illinois, and I know they're dealing with this. At least hopefully you're on the north side where you're not going to get as much snow, but I know you're also going to be getting that cold. Oops. Kevin's asking, is the meters the phrase side hustle get way overused? I mean, I don't know. I mean, in my case, it's kind of how I consider it, because it's definitely it's not my primary thing by any means. I'm in a position where I don't, whatever I make in this can kind of stick with the business or just go into, it's not in the family budget for monthly, expenses. So it's definitely whatever I'm making it on the side, and it goes into the future car fund, or, the vacation fund, or the retirement fund, or the new toy fund. So for me, I think it fits. And it's more, for some people, maybe they're not making much at it, and it's more of a hobby thing than a side hustle. Because, I guess it kind of depends on everybody's definition, but yeah. And I feel too, there's a lot of people that they just view that they need multiple income streams. There's very few like people that, they get out of high school and they start working for a company, or they go to college and they start working at a company and stay with them for, 30 years and retire off that. A lot of people are looking at, well, I have this, but I'm going to be job hopping in my career, and so I want this other stream. So I don't know. I feel we're in a different economy than, what my parents were as I was a kid, or my, the grandparents and such. So I think it's becoming more of the norm for people to have maybe multiple streams of income versus one primary, or, a primary and a secondary. But who knows? I think there are a lot of terms that kind of get stretched. Like one thing, one term that I don't know, it's starting to grate on me a little bit, but an overused term is game changer. Everything seems to be a game changer these days. And I don't know that. I've probably used that term myself in the past, but I've been noticing it more, so I try not to. Because is it really truly a game changer? Or is it just slightly different? Yeah, Barb, they definitely do crack. And a lot of times what they'll do is the bark will actually kind of separate from, more of the hearthwood a little bit, and heartwood, and that will pop off it, but there's some that will actually split as well, but they don't necessarily explode, causing shrapnel. You heard Clack is spending the weekend at my place. He's threatened to say, hey, we'd love to come up and see snow in winter. And I'm like, I don't think you want to. I'll send him videos of, driving just out in the country a little bit with blowing snow and hardly seeing the highway. And I'm like, I mean, if this is what you want to see, come on up. But I think Minnesota is beautiful in all the seasons, but unless you're really up here and you're living in it and you're enjoying it for some reason, I don't think winter is at least not deep winter here. You know, maybe holiday time winter is something that you want to come up here and see. But I'd rather show people the summer and the fall in Minnesota. So, northern, yeah, this year especially they've been a little bit better, but it used to be more that you had to get up more north to see them. But this year there's been a lot more solar activity, so it can be good, but it's not necessarily like what you see from up in Scandinavia. Northern, you get up to Ireland, or not Ireland, Iceland, and Norway, Sweden, those areas, you can get some really beautiful stuff, or up in Alaska and Canada. We get some pretty good stuff here, but you also need to get away from the city lights. And so, like I said earlier, we live in I don't know what they officially call it. It's definitely not a major metropolitan area, but it's a good sized city. And so there's decent light pollution. And so you got to get away from that a little bit to see it very well. But it is nice to be able, especially when I go up on the North Shore of Lake Superior and you get away from the lights, you get up north a little bit, that you get some really good displays up there. Well, Sharon, thanks for joining and hanging out for a bit. Like I said, this is kind of just spur of the moment, trying to warm things up here, hang out with people, chat a little bit. Hope you have a good evening. Stay warm. You're up in Mille Lacs, -6 ice fishing. Actually, where I was born up on the southern edge of Mille Lacs Lake. So yeah, definitely. Facebook's acting up again on this. Definitely a colder environment up there, up in central and northern Minnesota by a little bit. So like, I think the temperatures here, I saw a chart down here, Rochester to Mankato, even up to the Twin Cities, is the low got to be about -20, -21. But then you got up towards like Mille Lacs, Brainerd, Bemidji, northern Minnesota, and they were like -27, -29 and such, which may or may not seem like a whole lot, but it definitely adds up. So yeah, that's another term. The companies over in Asia definitely love to throw that one around a lot. World's first, whatever. And I know David and I have touched on that in the past. Of I don't care. And if you have to say world's first dual head, multicolor, strung out onto this and with if your world's first is becoming longer than like 4 or 5 words, it probably doesn't matter. So, yeah, I've seen some of those videos where they were talking like 5 meters of snow. People are, the cars you're seeing the time lapse of the cars just getting buried and such. Yeah, that's no thanks. We've had some heavy snows up here, and what can be worse is getting them, like, you get a day where it's like, okay, here's 6 inches of snow, and then you clear that out, and then the next day here's 2 inches of snow, and then here's another 8 inches of snow, and like within a week period you have 5 different snows, and it adds up to 16 to 20 inches, and you're just like, okay, I'm done. The piles are getting deep. It continues to get harder to shovel. It's nice when we kind of get a little bit of a melting cycle in between them and a little bit of a break, but you definitely have to kind of want it. And yeah, dealing with snow, we're I don't know. There's some people who they don't want to have anything to do with it, and others who enjoy the snowmobiling, the skiing, the snowshoeing, whatever, winter activities. I like the seasonal changes and whatnot, but I would much rather deal with brief, deep colds like this than constant high heat. I just don't do as well, in the summertime when it's hot and humid. My energy gets zapped out of that real quick. Like here, I got layers on. I'm fine. So, hey V, good to see you. Just kind of hanging out, trying to warm up the shop, do a few things, and seeing what people are all doing. Getting back in the swing of stuff after my trip out to CES and then getting sick and having semester startup such. Yeah, visiting friends in snow drifts up to the top of their garage. That was the thing when I was young. We actually lived in Watertown, South Dakota, for a couple of years, and we were out in the country a little bit. And so they would send the bigger plows out, and they would make these huge drifts. And it got to the point where you couldn't. There was one winter where the drifts were so high that you couldn't necessarily see the houses from the road because the drifts were just piled up so high. It was great as a kid. I mean, I've tunneled into that stuff, made all sorts of snow forts and such, but having to deal with that, shoveling or snow blowing that much as an adult, I don't know. I like the season changes. I like to see some snow, but getting to the point where my back doesn't like excessive amounts of snow clearing. Yeah. And that's the other thing too, is like, we'll get those massive snows here, or you guys get them up north as well. And we have, we've got the infrastructure and the tools to deal with the snow. My dad's down in Arizona, but he's up in the mountains, where they do still get cold and they do get some snow. If they get too much, things kind of shut down. They give it a day or two, things melt, and they get back to normal. They, at least in his area, do have limited snow clearing equipment. But yeah, you get down south and they just, what's a snow plow? They don't have the equipment to clear it out. So things shut down. So while I do poke fun at them a little bit, I do feel bad for them having to deal with it when it's just not set up for it. So yeah. Now, Mark, yeah, you're measuring feet, not inches. Very much so. Or collectively over the course of a winter, we might measure in feet, but it's not uncommon in our over the course of the winter to have one or two, you get a foot of snow, but it's not an every single snowstorm kind of thing. I think recently it's been more like, your typical snow here might be 2 to 3 inches, and on a worst day, you're like, oh yeah, we're going to get 8 to 10 kind of stuff. But it, like I say, it's like when it happens, like, oh, well, you're going to have 2 to 3 this day, 6 to 8 that day, 3 to 4 that day. You get a break, and then you're going to get another 6 to 8. That's just, I'd rather have it all come. Give me 16 inches overnight and let me deal with it and be done with it for a week. Oh, you're these chilling cutting Valentine projects. Yeah, it is a season for that. I mean, if you're doing customization items for people and trying to keep up with the holidays, you've probably been doing Valentine's for a bit. You're going to be jumping into St. Patrick's Day and Easter shortly after that, and then you get rolling into Mother's Day and graduation, and then Father's Day, and you just kind of keeping ahead of those seasons. So yeah, David says their schools are closed Monday. I thought you guys were only getting rain down there. Yeah, Brad, down Texas, they shut. There's a swath. What did I see up towards Dallas where they're plausibly going to get what, like ½ inch of ice mixed with 8 to 12 inches of snow as well. That just I wouldn't want that up here. So yeah, Barb. We need the snow as it feeds the lakes and forests. So we live, right along the Minnesota River Valley. And of course, springtime, if we get a lot of snow and it warms up too fast, that's when we get the whole flooding events. So it's always nice when we get a lot of snow, but it kind of just eases into it and can soak in. But definitely up north, you guys definitely need. We don't want to have those forest fires again. So. Oh, anyway. So, been going for almost a couple hours here, and probably going to jump in and get some dinner soon. But yeah, just was out here warming things up. Thought I'd hop on, say hi, chat with everybody, get a little inspired to get my videos edited and get out here in the shop and work a little bit more. So I hope everyone does stay warm this weekend. I hope everyone down south stays safe. I hope the ice storms aren't as bad as they say. And I hope that if you can and need to, you can stay home and the power stays on and such. But I'll be working on some stuff here. We'll be having our live stream with David this Sunday evening. Hopefully, some fun stuff to share. Hopefully, everybody's safe and warm and has power then. And we'll get through January, get a little bit closer to spring. But yeah, it was fun hanging out. It was fun chatting. We're still at 55 degrees, but hopefully we'll get up closer to 60 and I can do some things out here. And we'll keep the content coming. But hope you all have a great weekend, and we'll see you soon.